Saturday, October 7th, was the single deadliest day for the Jewish people since World War II. More than 700 people in Israel are dead: Jews, Arabs, Europeans, Americans, and others. Dozens more are being held as hostages. In a nation as small as Israel, you can't have an attack like this without every resident being personally impacted in some way. Hillel Fuld is one of those Israelis. He's a guru in the tech world and one of Israel's most ardent supporters. One of his brothers was killed by a Palestinian terrorist 5 years ago. Another is a member of the Knesset, Israel's legislative body. Like most Israelis, Hillel served in the military. He also has several sons, one of whom may be drafted into service very soon. I had the opportunity to speak with Hillel briefly on Monday, 48 hours after the attacks, to gain his insights about what's unfolding in Israel.
Hillel Fuld, thank you so much for joining us today. Take me back to Saturday morning, if you would. Here in the States, we woke up and it was just crazy, but it's different in Israel. It was Shabbat morning. It's Sukkot. It's a holy day. Simchat Torah was starting that evening. It's a time of joy. People were celebrating, and you woke up to this tragedy. Just take me back to that and kind of walk me through it.
So let me just correct you first. In Israel, Simchat Torah is actually combined with Shmini Atzeret. It's two holidays that are combined in Israel. So Saturday morning was actually Simchat Torah, and we were dancing with Torah scrolls, which is what Jews do on Simchat Torah. And mid prayers, as we hug the Torah scrolls, there's a screech from the women's section, Azaka, which means alarm, which means siren. On the way to synagogue 5 minutes before that with my kids, I had heard Iron Domes above me, which sadly to say is not something that's so uncommon. It by no means there's a war starting. And so I didn't really make much of it. And when they screamed that there's a siren, that was strange. And so we all obviously rushed to the bomb shelter. The problem is that because it was a holiday, there were hundreds of people in synagogue, and the bomb shelter was not created for hundreds of people. And so, there was not even close to enough space there. So the women went in, the men stood by walls and tried to, protect ourselves the best we can. And that was just the beginning. And then, siren after siren after siren after siren. And, members of the community's sons getting called up one after the other. Rabbi's son gets called up one after the other. And we knew something was very, very serious. The rumors started to circulate. Obviously, as observant Jews, we don't use our phones, so we were all basing on rumors, and that's very dangerous. And so I kind of wanted to believe inside that the rumors could not be true, because how could that have happened? What people were saying, and for whatever reason, when everyone around me was trying to kind of calm me down, I was like, how do I calm down? What happens if these rumors are true? What happens if I come back from Sabbath, I turn on my phone, and there are 75 casualties? For some reason, that number was the craziest number I could imagine. 75 dead. We know what happened, and it's been an absolute, zoo since. And I'm, on a personal level, I'm just kind of, made it my role to try to spread as much optimism as I can. And maybe that's me, using that as a coping mechanism. I don't know. I'm not a psychologist, but that's what I've been, occupying myself with. But it's, to say it's tragic is the understatement of the century. I mean, the deadliest day since the Holocaust, as far as the Jewish nation is concerned. And, people talk about the Yom Kippur War. The deadliest day in the Yom Kippur War, I think, was 310 casualties. We're at 800. So just for perspective, this is a historic tragedy.
This is not your first experience with terrorism. You have many people in Israel have personal experience with it, but you and your story is somewhat unique. Can you kind of just explain a little bit your backstory with your brother?
Sure. So we're from New York originally. I've been in Israel for 30 years. My older brother, we're five boys. Ari was one older than me. So I'm number 4. I have a younger brother, number 5, who's in the Knesset, in the parliament. And Ari was one above me. And he was a very outspoken Israel advocate for many years, with millions of people who read and watched this stuff. And on the eve of Yom Kippur 5 years ago, he was shopping for his family about 20 minutes outside of Jerusalem, and a 16-year-old Palestinian kid came and stabbed him in a main artery in his neck. And Ari ran after the terrorist, basically with no blood in his veins, quite supernaturally, and he chased the terrorist and got in a shooting position, jumped over a wall first, got in a shooting position and shot him. He did not kill him, but he saved a woman who the terrorist was about, I don't know, a few inches from, which was his intended next victim. And then Ari obviously dropped dead. And he got a National Hero Award from the state of Israel. And the stories 5 years later still flow in, like the amount of people that he touched in his life and influenced and impacted, and how he really, one person, I would say, really changed the lives of millions of people. And it's on the one hand, obviously, tremendous tragedy on a personal and family level, and for the nation of Israel. But I'm not going to lie and say that there is not some serious pride here. My grandmother, rest in peace, was a survivor of Auschwitz. And I always say, if I told her one day that your grandson would be a national hero of the state of Israel, your other grandson would be in the parliament of the state of Israel, and your other grandson would be however you want to describe me, she wouldn't know what to do with that information. And so it's historic times we're living in. I got to take a wider perspective despite the personal pain. We're doing what we can, but we're dealing with savage, I don't want to say animals because that's highly offensive to animals, but savage beings that have no humanity, period. And they will stop at nothing. They are driven 100% by killing as many Jews as possible. And I think if I am going to try to maybe squeeze some, lemonade here out of the lemons, I'll say that at least now the world sees their true face. And I want to believe that, that is something I hope that the world will not forget, in 2 days or 3 days or 4 days, when Israel hopefully does what it needs to do in Gaza.
Based on what you just said, I think I know what your answer is going to be for this next question, but it kind of leads me into it. There is some debate in Western media about the proper terms to use for Hamas soldiers. Are they militants? Or are they terrorists? What's the right term?
The answer to that question is, by the very question, we know that the moral compass of Western society has gone out the window a long time ago. The fact that we're even discussing people that abduct women, children, Holocaust survivors, and we're even discussing what to call them? There's no discussion. They're terrorists, period, full stop. And anybody who has any debate about that needs to seriously check their moral compass.
I want to get back to something you said earlier. You said when you were at synagogue, you were on your way there and you heard Iron Dome going off, and it, as sad as it is, that's part of life in Israel, hearing the Iron Dome intercepting missiles. It wasn't necessarily a cause of alarm for you. A lot of observant Jews, they're not connected to social media during that time frame. What sort of concerns do you have as far as is the Israeli government's ability to secure borders and protect its people based on what happened Saturday morning? I mean, there's people on gliders, ultralight gliders coming in. The fences were blown up. There's now reports of terror tunnels in some of the kibbutzes.
I'm not equipped to answer that question, if I'm being honest. We don't know anything yet. I could tell you all kinds of conspiracies. I'd rather not. I just know one thing. What you see is not what you get. This is not what it seems. That I could tell you unequivocally, because any soldier that's ever been on the border with Gaza knows that if a bird flies by, they are alerted. There is no way that 400 or however many hundreds of Palestinians on tractors blowing up the border, wall came through without anybody noticing. It's just not a thing at all whatsoever. 0% chance that happened. So I don't know what happened. I know that Hamas pulled one over everyone. For 2 years they've been planning this. I know that there were the Egyptians tried to warn. Again, unequipped because I don't know. But what I do know is not. What I do know is that it is not what you think is what you see is what you get, because there is no way this happened without something more than just Hamas's sophisticated abilities, which is, they are sophisticated. What they've developed in years of us just letting them be, they've definitely developed very sophisticated weapons, but that was not enough to pull this off. So I don't know the answer to that question, but we're going to find out soon.
You bet. This morning, the military, it's mobilized, reserves, hundreds of thousands of reserves are being called up. Just from a boots on the ground perspective, for folks in the West who haven't seen anything like that, don't know what that looks like, kind of walk me through that process from a citizen of Israel.
What specifically are you asking about?
Well, I mean, are you seeing soldiers? Yeah, are tanks rolling down the street? Is your neighbor packing up his bag to go serve? I mean, what sort of impacts personally has the mobilization had on your life and on your family's life?
I mean, I live in a town in between Jerusalem and Tel Aviv. There are no tanks on the streets, but every 5 minutes I'm hearing about another person that I know that was killed. I just heard about a childhood friend's son was killed. I just heard about my late brother's best friend's son was killed. So if terror, didn't touch most people in the country till now everybody knows someone who was killed. I don't think anybody, someone did ask me, "Oh, are you planning on leaving Israel?" That thought did not even cross my mind, and it would never cross my mind. Despite everything that's going on, I still believe Israel is the safest place for a Jew to be today. I know it's a funny thing to say, but it's statistically true. It's historically true. There's no debate about it whatsoever, even with the horrible tragedy that we're experiencing right now. But other than that, other than hearing about friends who are losing their relatives and loved ones, and obviously, hearing the booms, hearing the Iron Dome, hearing the bombing in Gaza, it's not necessarily deeply impacting. My kids, are here in my house. Thank God. One of my kids was away for the Sabbath, so I had to go pick him up, which was a little scary, but thank God. I mean, it hasn't. I don't want to jinx anything, but we're here, home, safe. When someone knocks on the door, I definitely check twice before I open it. But other than that, thank God we're safe.
In America, obviously, there's the Second Amendment. Israel, there's been an increase of purchase certificates for personal weapons at home. Have you felt a need to arm yourself, to protect yourself from the potential threat of more Palestinians invading?
So my brothers are all armed. They all officially live over the Green Line, in the quote unquote settlements. I am not armed. I never owned a gun, and I have no intention of owning a gun. If I'm being totally kind of transparent and honest with you, I don't like guns. I do. We all fight our battles. My battle I view as in front of the keyboard. I was in the army. I served in the military. I was in artillery. I dealt with shooting cannons, and from my perspective, for as long as I live, I never want to smell that gunpowder again, because I don't want to use the word trauma, but it's not something I want in my life ever again.
Israel has mandatory service. You have 2 sons, correct?
I have 4 sons.
4 sons. Sorry. As a dad, I mean, what's going through your mind right now? This war is starting. You have 4 sons.
I mean, listen, at some point, I have to look up to the heavens, right? I have to tap into my faith, because if I'm gonna, only look at this from a, let's call it, human perspective, then I won't be able to deal with the anxiety, right? My oldest son is 19. He's in a pre-military academy now. He's probably drafting in the next couple of months. To say I'm not terrified, that would be a lie. My second son, is not far off, about a year. My twins are 12, so they have a couple, they have some time, but the thought is paralyzing. It's terrifying, of course.
Before Saturday, from an outsider observer, there's a lot of divide in Israel about, you said quote unquote settlements earlier. There's this idea of the 2-state solution, and there's a lot of division within Israel. What to do with the Palestinians, what to do with West Bank, and what to do with Gaza. Like, do we deal with them together or separate? What's the feeling now? Is there more of a unified feeling now?
I think the feeling here is no different than the feeling globally, and that is that the Palestinian cause is rest in peace. Thank God. So if I'm going to find, a little cup half full of perspective, I don't think anyone in their right mind. And when I say that, I don't mean anyone. There are still people marching in the streets of New York supporting the Palestinian cause. Excuse me for saying it this way, but if you're supporting the cause of people that just abducted old women and children, and I don't even want to think what they did to them, then you are a terrorist. Full blown. I'm not even ashamed to say that anymore. I would have said it a little more moderately about 3 weeks ago, and I would have said you're supporting terror. But now, if you are supporting the Palestinian cause today, after what you've seen, that's just full blown terror support. And so I don't think anyone in their right mind thinks that 2-state solution is on the table. I think everyone understands the reality, which is what I've been screaming and yelling. And Ari, my older brother, late brother, used to say all the time, which is, this is not about land. If they wanted land, they would have had land years ago. We gave them Gaza. They had land. This isn't about land. They say it. It's about time you listen to them. This is about dead Jews, period. I think the world now understands that. And again, maybe this is me trying to be cup half full, but to me, maybe that's something positive that came out of all of this, which is the mask that the Palestinian people have worn for so long has now been removed, and the world sees it just as clearly as I see it, as my brother saw it. And I think that that's extremely important diplomatically and politically.
Bibi Netanyahu always said, we're committed to it. There's support within the U.S. Nikki Haley and other presidential candidates have said, finish them. President Biden has said Israel has the right to support itself from terrorists, full stop. Is this unfortunately the tragedy that needed to happen? And you kind of spoke to it a little bit with the cup half full. Is this the tragedy that needed to happen in order for Israel to kind of take the gloves off, go into Gaza and, clean house?
So, I can answer that from a few different perspectives. As a Jew, I want to believe that we are a nation of mercy and of compassion. And we pray in our prayers 100 times a day for peace. Peace is the most fundamental pillar of Judaism. And so I believe, somewhere deep down, we've been naive. We've been really naive, thinking maybe they'll change. Maybe they'll change. Maybe there'll be a moderate leader. Maybe there'll be an uprising. Maybe they'll change. And so, the thought of going into Gaza and flattening Gaza, that's not a Jewish concept, right? And so I think we've kind of, avoided the topic altogether. And, just the whole disengagement. I could talk about this for hours. It's an absolute travesty and a historic, mistake of unprecedented proportions as far as I'm concerned. But unfortunately, this is what needed to happen. And I still don't know if we're going to do what needs to be done. I hope to God that we do. I don't even know what needs to be done because I'm not a military strategist. And, the one thing that people need to understand is that in every war in history, innocent people were killed. No one would claim that World War II was unjustified. There were millions of innocent Germans killed. No one's going to say, but they were innocent. And you know what? It's sad when innocents are killed. No, there's no question. But as there's that famous video, the silent majority is irrelevant. It doesn't matter how many of these Palestinians dance in the streets and give out candies. There's many hundreds of thousands, if not more. It doesn't matter because even if the majority is, even if the majority does want peace, if they're sitting there electing Hamas, then as far as I'm concerned, they've gotten their death wish. And unfortunately, they're going to be innocents who are killed. But that's, like I said, every war. I hope we do what we need to do. And I'm not going to say what we need to do because I'm not a military strategist. I don't know. I know what my heart and my emotions tell me we need to do, but obviously that's not the way to run and conduct a war. So I hope that, we have the smartest people in this country, and I hope that we make the right decision to do what we need to do. Finally, it's unfortunate that this had to happen for us to reach that conclusion.
What else do we need to know, Hillel? What else is the world?
What else? This is the deadliest days since the Holocaust for the Jewish people. This is we need to understand the proportions here. And if you pray, and if you don't pray, just say the words. Just say the word. It doesn't hurt. Just say we need it. We need it badly. I'm sitting here talking to you, and my phone is exploding from all the infiltrations that got to Israel from Gaza, from the north, from the south. It's all over the place, and it's not stopping. So we need prayers. We do have one of the strongest armies in the world. We do know what we need to do, but we still need prayers. So I guess that's the last thing I could say is just pray for us because we really do need it.
Hillel, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.